In this video, I'm going to introduce you to if-else statements. So go ahead and open a new class, and we're going to name this class odd or even. Going to put a comment header or a program header. So name lesson 8, file name odd or even.java, and this program will decide whether a number is odd or even. Underneath our main string, let's assign a variable. Integer x is assigned to 4. Now we're going to see whether x is odd or even. But what makes a number odd or even? An even number is divisible by 2. So we're going to do our first statement if x, our integer, and we're going to use mod. And if you remember, mod basically says divides into 2. And we're going to say if the remainder is equal to. So that's when you add 2 equal signs. So if x mod 2 is equal to 0, in other words, if there is no remainder when it's divided by 2, then we're going to say that the number is even. So system.out.println, and we're going to say x is even, and that's a statement, so we're going to end it with a semicolon. When we run this, we know that 4 is even, and it displays 4 is even. But if we were to type in a 3, it would run the code, and nothing would be displayed. But we want this to say that 3 is odd. So that's where we're going to put in an else. So if x mod 2 is equal to 0, if this statement is true, so if it does equal 0, it's going to print that x is even. If it doesn't equal 0, it goes to the else statement. Else system.out.println x is odd. And we can do this because there are only 2 options when it comes to an even or an odd integer. There are only even integers or there are only odd integers. So when we run this, it's going to say 3 is odd. So our integer x is being stored as what we type in, which is 3. It's checking to see if it's divisible by 2. If it is, it prints out that it's even. If it's not divisible by 2, it prints out that it's odd. Now let's say, along with even and odd, we wanted to see whether the number was negative or positive. Well, let's just start another if statement. So if x is less than 0, system.out.println x is negative, because negative numbers are less than 0. Else x is positive. Running that with a 3, it's going to say 3 is odd, 3 is positive. Let's try it with a negative 32. Negative 32 is even, and negative 32 is negative. But let's see what happens with the 0. It says 0 is even, which is true, but 0 is not positive. 0 is neither negative or positive. So we cannot say that it's one or the other. When it comes to whole numbers, you have one of 2 choices, whether it's odd or whether it's even. But you can have whole numbers that are negative, positive, or neither if we include 0. So we're just going to change this statement up a little bit. So it's going to say if x is less than 0, it's going to print out that it's negative. Else if x is greater than 0, it's going to say that it's positive. when we run this, since 0 isn't less than 0 and 0 isn't greater than 0, it's just not going to display anything. It's just going to say that 0 is even. But if we wanted it to say something, we would just add the final else in. So if, else if, and then else. And we're going to do system.out.print x is neither positive or negative. When we run this with 0, we're going to get 0 is even, 0 is neither positive or negative. And remember, the code's going from the top to the bottom. So it's doing this if-else statement first, and then it's doing this cascading if statement. If, else, else. After an if statement, you do not put a semicolon at the end. If you did wish to have some kind of closure, you would use brackets directly after what you're seeing is true or false, and directly after the statement that you want completed with the if. But usually, when it's a one-line if statement, you do not need to put any brackets.